Discover the incredible truth, 10 life-changing aspects of childbirth in medieval times revealed. The chill clung to the air like a shadow, wrapping around the small village of Windermere, where hope seemed as scarce as sunlight in the dead of winter. Elenora, just 20 and aching under the weight of impending motherhood, could almost hear the whisper of death riding the bitter winds. Fear gripped her heart, for the Black Death was creeping ever closer, invading the peace of her people. Yet, it was a fierce love for her unborn child that stirred her spirit, igniting a fire within that would not easily be extinguished. As she sat by the dying embers of their fireplace, Elenora's mind flickered back to her mother, a woman forged in the struggle of hard work and sacrifice. Her mother's hands, once strong, now trembled with age and illness as she prepared Elenora for this daunting journey. They shared stories of pain and resilience, woven through centuries of women before them, their legacies passed down like heirlooms. "Never forget, Elenora," her mother had said, her voice heavy with the weight of tradition, "your spirit is made of iron." But even as the words filled Elenora with determination, a current of tension surged between them, cutting through the warm air of nostalgia. The clash of expectations echoed in their home as Elenora yearned to break free, imagine a world for her child where dreams were not merely survival but prosperity. And yet, the heavy silence of fear, the unspoken fears her mother carried, hung over them like a knife's edge. Just as the winds howled outside, a cowardly merchant from the village seized on the misery around them, raising prices and spreading tales of doom to profit from their despair. Elenora watched her father, a man of quiet endurance, shake his head and turn away from confrontation, a choice that gnawed at her spirit. Why bend to the whims of greed when boldness might save them? The struggle of loyalty clashed with the desire for justice within her heart. Then, a storm came in the form of her mother's illness, unraveling Eleonora's resolve. She lay pale and fevered, battling both sickness and the shadows of doubt creeping into Eleonora's mind. What future was left? Her dreams shattered like glass, leaving sharp reminders of what lay ahead. Elenora felt like a boat tossed in rough seas, the horizon disappearing before her eyes. But as desperation took hold, hope arrived in the form of a seasoned soldier, a figure from the past who had fought battles and come home with tales that tugged at the heart, stories of resilience that stirred the villagers awake from the grips of despair. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the villagers leaned in, their faces flickering with renewed hope, Elenora felt the walls closing in lift just a bit, like the sun peeking through storm clouds. Their internal prejudices faded as they realized together was their strength. But Elenora found herself teetering on an edge. How could she summon the courage to ignite change without losing her family? Moments of clarity sparked in her mind. What she truly loved was not the chains of loyalty, but the possibility of a better life. With her heart racing beneath the weight of those choices, Elenora stood at the precipice of a new beginning, feeling the pulse of the village in her veins. Would she wield her dreams like a sword in the fight against despair, or would she let it wilt beneath the weight of tradition? The village waited with bated breath, the question heavy in the air. What would Elenora sacrifice for the sake of love and a brighter future? Eleonora's heart thumped like a war drum as the soldiers' tales offered her a glimpse of resilience she hadn't dared to imagine. Each word painted a future where sacrifice wasn't just a necessity but a pathway to hope. When the soldier spoke of battles fought and won, his gaze swept across the agitated townsfolk with a promise of strength, a promise that kindled something deep inside her. "Together," he said, his voice strong but laced with urgency, "we can weather this storm." Elenora felt that fury of emotion ripple through her. What if they could? What if she could inspire them to rise against the creeping dread of the Black Death? The villagers' faces, once cloaked in despair, now sparkled with flickers of resolve. She watched as men and women straightened their spines, faces mirroring her own shift from resignation to defiance. Sweaty palms, racing thoughts. With every ounce of her being, Elenora knew she had to harness this moment. They needed a leader, and deep down, she felt it was her destiny to be that spark. "We can protect ourselves," she called out, her voice trembling but resolute. If we uphold one another, we can not only endure but thrive. Whispers broke through the crowd, swelling into murmurs of agreement. Her mother, previously tucked under the weight of illness, now looked on with wide eyes searching for a glimmer of her daughter she feared might be lost. Elenora met her gaze, and for the first time, she conceived a world not confined by the shackles of fear, where her mother could once again be a source of wisdom instead of worry. But then came the pull of uncertainty, a nagging doubt intertwined with the excitement. What if her ambition altered the tender fabric of her family? Could she bear witness to the rift her ideas might create, especially when her father opposed confrontation at every turn? As she stepped further into the spotlight, the villagers grew quiet. There was a spark in her fueled by love for her child and unwavering hope for a brighter future. We fight not only for ourselves but for those who cannot protect themselves, she added, her determination rippling through the air. For our elders, our loved ones, for this unborn life I carry. Hesitation hung in the air. But when a child, no more than 6, stepped forward, she felt a wave of solidarity crash over her. He held a small wooden toy, a soldier, brave and sturdy. Would you lead us? His voice rang like a bell through the silence, cutting straight to Eleonora's heart. The villagers exchanged looks filled with something shifting, fire ignited. Yes, we will follow you, another voice chimed in, this one a woman with kind eyes and rain-soaked locks. Elenora felt them rally behind her, filling the gaps left by fear with flickers of hope, and she embraced that energy deep within. But amid the rising tide, uncertainty still loomed like a shadow. In the trenches of change and resistance, would love be enough to hold her family together? How could she stand tall for them while fearing the inevitable pushback? Elenora stood before them all, aware that this was only the beginning. The choices she faced felt monumental, wrapping around her like chains yet to be forged. Was she ready to take the leap, to unearth a future filled with promise while navigating the tempests of her own heart? As the villagers began to gather around her, their voices rising in fervor, she knew the path ahead would be fraught with danger and challenge. But what lay on the other side of fear? Could there truly be a life filled with possibility instead of despair? So many questions danced in her mind, but one whispered louder than the rest. Would her courage lead them forth, or would it all crumble under the weight of tradition? The moment of truth was looming, and Elenora felt herself edging closer, knowing deep down she had everything to lose, but even more to gain. Elenora took a deep breath, grounding herself as she perceived the electric charge in the air. The villagers had begun to murmur her name, their voices weaving a growing tapestry of support. Each syllable hung on their lips an affirmation, a mantra of unity. For every part of her that quaked with doubt, another firmly anchored her resolve. She had become their force, the vessel through which their hopes flowed. Together, she reiterated, the word reverberating in the stillness. We can defend ourselves, our families, our very future. Their response was immediate, a chorus of voices rising like a wave crashing against the shore. Elenora felt buoyed by their energy, a warmth spreading through her chest as she stood taller. But as the fervor swelled, she couldn't shake the gnawing worry for her family. Her father's apprehension gnawed at her mind, his steady hands would not sign on to any uprising. With a glance, she refocused on her audience, scanning their faces. No longer were they shadows of sorrow, now they radiated determination. A mother whose eyes were red from hours of worry, a father holding his child tight, and a young woman who just lost her brother, each held a story etched in their hearts. If Elenora could ignite their passion, perhaps they could man the barriers that threatened to shatter their lives. Who will stand with me? She challenged them. Who will help me forge a new path? Silence briefly enveloped the crowd before a ripple moved through the throng. One by one, they started to step forward, a show of hands, fists raised in solidarity. There was a fierce energy now, a burning drive that seemed to pulse with life, but beneath her bravery, uncertainty lingered like dark clouds above. What if her resolve turned to folly? What if, in challenging tradition, she risked a fracture within her own home? The weight of her father's disapproval threatened to crush her spirit. How could she ask for support from a man who viewed change as peril? Yet as she looked into each determined face, she felt the same hope crystallize within her. I promise to fight with every breath I have for our future, she declared, her voice unwavering. For our children, for the sake of this community. The words rolled off her tongue with conviction, cloaking her doubts in a shimmering veil of purpose. The crowd responded with fervor, each shout and cheer echoing the spirit she exerted. "To protect what we love most," cried a voice from the back, and Eleanora's heart surged, spinning like a whirlpool, drawing strength from each of them. With encouragement flowing around her, Elenora caught a glimpse of a future that shimmered clear and vibrant. But even as triumph swirled around her, the memory of her father's caution loomed like a specter. What if standing tall meant risking everything she loved? Determination warred with fear within her chest. She could feel the pull toward a grand future, but the quiet concerns nestled deep inside her nagged at the edges of her conviction. Elenora stole a glance at the crowd, their faces filled with both anxiety and hope. The villagers' resolve was infectious, but the quagmire of her own family's feelings pressed her. She needed strategy, a plan to navigate their shared history as she forged ahead. Elenora let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. This was about more than just her. "Let us gather tomorrow," she proposed, sensing the moment was right. To strategize. To lean on our strengths and share our concerns. Nods and murmurs of agreement followed, an undercurrent of excitement crackling in the air. As the crowd began to disperse, a stirring inside her turned into a quiet shame. Was she leading them into battle or exposing them to danger? Elenora turned homeward, her heart heavy even as it thrummed with exhilaration. She was on a precipice, feeling the potential of something monumental waiting to be born. Yet the thought of facing her father loomed larger than ever. With each step through the familiar streets, her mind buzzed with questions. Will he understand? The night was dark, whispering secrets of fears that curled around her like the mist settling in the valley. Confrontation lay ahead, but so too did the promise of unity. What would her father say when she brought her vision home? Would he stand beside her or against her? Elenora pressed on, tension coiled tight in her stomach, knowing the path forward was far more treacherous than she'd anticipated. She felt the moment approaching, a catalyst waiting just beyond the door. And if she was to lead her people, she would need to first confront the heart of her family. The door creaked as Elenora stepped inside their modest home, the familiar scent of baked bread mingling with the earthy notes of her father's workshop. She paused, her heart thumping loudly in her chest. Shadows danced across the walls, flickering from the fire that crackled in the hearth. Her father was hunched over, carving a piece of wood while her mother hummed softly in the kitchen. Elenora cleared her throat, grounding herself amid the warmth of home. The flicker of the flames painted her father's focused expression, a mixture of intensity and tranquility. Yet, she felt a chasm widen between them, a chasm filled with unspoken fears and expectations. "Father," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. He looked up, surprise etched across his features. She pushed the words out, each one heavy with tremors. "I need to talk to you." He set the carving tool aside, brow furrowed. "About what, Elenora?" "About the village, about the future," she trailed off, glancing toward her mother who was now watching closely, hands resting on the counter. The kitchen felt both supportive and stifling, her father's gaze hardened, shadows flickering across his features. "You know how I feel about stirring trouble. It only invites danger." Taking a deep breath, Elenora pressed on. "But what if it's not trouble? What if it's a chance to change everything? The villagers, they're ready to fight for something better. They need a leader." A silence fell between them, thick as the mist outside. Her father's fingers tightened around the edge of the table. "A leader? Or a fool? You have no idea what you're asking for." The edge in his voice pierced her heart. "I do. I've seen their determination. I can be that voice, that strength." Elenora knew her conviction surged like fire now, burning bright. "We can create a future where our children won't live in fear. Isn't that worth fighting for?" Her father's eyes darkened, and she could see the storm brewing inside him. "And if you fail? What then?" The question hung in the air, a tangible weight that crushed her spirit. What if she failed? What if she led them into ruin? The very thought she had pushed aside now clawed to the surface. Eleanora's confidence wavered, replaced by a chilling dread. Her father was right, the risk was immense. Her mother stepped forward, breaking the tension. Thomas, let her speak. There is something powerful in her, a spark. We should listen. The warmth in her mother's voice felt like a balm, calming the tempest within. Elenora seized the moment, desperation flickering in her voice. I've seen the pain in our neighbors' eyes. They are suffering, Father. We can't just sit quietly anymore. They need us to act. Thomas looked between them, the stern lines on his face softening just slightly. Action can also lead to heartache, Elenora. If you choose this path, you must be prepared for what it brings. People may perish. Don't lead them recklessly. What is the purpose of living if we merely exist in fear? She countered, a fire ignited in her gut. We can't let fear dictate our lives anymore. The silence turned suffocating as her father's gaze fell, his hands working the tabletop. Elenora held her breath, praying he heard the desperation woven through her every word. Finally, he lifted his chin, eyes meeting hers with a mix of conflict. And what if it leads to more darkness, more pain? Her heart raced. Then we face it together. I will not do this alone. His face reflected a storm of emotions, every crease hinting at the battles he had fought within himself. She could almost see the memories flooding back, echoes of family torn apart, of choices that lay heavy on his shoulders. What if her father started, hesitating as if the words were a bridge he was too afraid to cross? What if I gather to support your cause, but only if you promise to cut through the darkness first? Elenora felt lightness flood through her, but mingle with encroaching anxiety. Could she make that promise? Could she lead? I promise, she responded, finding a delicate sense of certainty within herself. With everything I have, I will protect our family and our people. Thomas nodded slowly, an unspoken understanding settling between them. But even as hope flickered brighter, there lingered a sense of urgency. The village was waiting, and she could feel the moment slipping through her fingers. The next dawn would bring the gathered villagers together, a mix of hope and uncertainty. Would she stand tall, as she had just vowed? The fire crackled, the night deepening around them, and Elenora couldn't shake the feeling that a new chapter was unfolding. What if her promise was but the beginning? As she lay in bed, shadows danced on the wall, and questions tangled in her mind. Would they be ready? Would she be enough? Sleep eluded her as she stared at the ceiling, a dance of fears and dreams spinning through her thoughts. Tomorrow was looming. The real battle would begin as soon as the sun kissed the horizon. What awaited them in the dawning day? Elenora awoke before dawn, the dark shadows still clinging to the corners of her bedroom. Light had yet to break, yet her spirit stirred with urgency. Today was the day. Today, she would stand before the villagers, not as a daughter or a mere observer, but as a beacon of hope, a leader. With a shaky breath, she rose, brushing off the remnants of sleep. The wooden floor felt cool beneath her feet, grounding her as she prepared for the momentous task ahead. She glanced out the small window and saw the first hint of dawn creeping over the horizon. It ignited a fire within her. Elenora dressed quickly, pulling on a simple tunic yet feeling the weight of her purpose hanging in the air. Her heart raced as thoughts of her neighbors surged through her mind, their weary faces, the lines etched around their eyes, the quiet despair they carried. Would they look to her today? Would they believe in her enough to rally together? In the kitchen, the comforting aroma of breakfast enveloped her. Her mother was there, flipping pancakes over the heat of the stove, the golden batter danced and sizzled. Elenora stepped forward, her stomach knotting with anxiety. Are you ready for today, love? Her mother asked softly, her gaze a tender lifeline. Elenora hesitated, a lump forming in her throat. I don't know if I can do this. The stark vulnerability felt foreign. What if they don't believe in me? What if they fear change as much as they fear the storm clouds on the horizon? Her mother wiped her hands on her apron and approached, squatting to meet Elenora's eyes. You carry the strength of your father and me within you. Speak from your heart. They'll see your truth, your fierce love for this village. That's what will lead them. Taking a deep breath, Elenora attempted to draw strength from her mother's words, but doubt flitted around her like a restless moth. What if my truth isn't enough? Then it will start a conversation. That's where change begins. Her mother's voice shimmered like the first light of day, infusing Elenora with a flicker of confidence. As they finished breakfast, the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, spilling warmth into the room. Elenora felt a surge of energy, a gentle encouragement from the golden light streaming in. The villagers would gather in the square, where the old oak tree stood tall, a witness to generations of stories and struggles. She moved toward the door, her resolve wavering with each step. But as she exited, a flutter of excitement and fear bloomed in her chest. Outside, the village was a mixture of whispers and shuffling feet. Faces turned towards her with curiosity. They had come people she cared for, who trusted her father. But could they trust her? Elenora caught sight of familiar faces, old Mrs. Perkins, who always offered her wise words, the gentle blacksmith, Matthias, who crafted swords and shields with hands of a true artist, children who often played in the streets, laughing and dreaming. Stepping onto the makeshift platform beneath the oak, Eleonora's heart pounded as she sensed the weight of their eyes upon her. "Everyone!" she called, her voice shaking but growing stronger with each word. "Thank you for being here. Our lives have been cloaked in shadow for too long. But we have the chance to change that." As she continued, a nervous determination took hold, and the words poured forth. She spoke of their struggles, their fears, and the vision of a united village, standing together against adversity. Her emotions surged as she delivered her promises, each word igniting that initial spark inside her. But even as she observed nodding heads and the warmth of their gazes, she noticed what seemed to be a shadow creeping among the crowd, a presence that felt wrong. Elenora squinted, the sun flickering behind her, but what she saw sent chills through her. Two figures appeared at the edge of the gathering, men dressed in dark, ominous clothing. They exchanged glances, contempt playing in the corners of their mouths. Maybe this was the darkness her father had warned her about. But in that moment, as uncertainty creased her brow, she felt something shift within her. "Elenora," she heard a voice whisper, piercing through the murmurs of the crowd. She looked back, her heart hammering in her chest. Was this a test? Or a signal that something far more dangerous was on the horizon? The weight of her promise began to settle around her like a cloak. How would she face this challenge? A storm was brewing. Would it break them, or would it bind them together? As the crowd's murmurs deepened, she braced herself, uncertain yet resolute. There was no turning back now, only facing the unknown ahead. And just like that, the winds changed. Eleonora's breath caught as she stared at the two figures standing at the edge of the crowd. Shadows melted away in the sun's light, but these men seemed to hold their own darkness, standing defiantly against the warmth radiating from the gathered villagers. Fear slithered into her heart, but it was quickly replaced by a surge of determination. "Stay together," she urged, her voice carrying over the unease. "Today, we claim our strength." The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, rippling through the gathering like waves on a pond. Her words hung in the air, mixed with both hope and trepidation. The villagers shifted, their eyes darting between her and the dark-clad men, instinctively sensing a tension that crackled like air before a storm. "Elenora," the voice called out again, more persistent this time. It came from the man in front, with piercing blue eyes and a grim smile that sent shivers down her spine. "You don't know what you're inviting." "Who are you?" she demanded, feeling the pulse of fear coursing through her. "It matters not who we are," the man replied, his tone smooth but laced with an undercurrent of menace. "What matters is what you think you can change." Behind her, whispers rose, filled with doubt and worry. Elenora clenched her fists at her sides, feeling the heat of frustration rise with the concerns threatening to unravel what she fought so hard to weave together. "I know our village is strong enough to withstand whatever challenges lie ahead," she declared, forcing her voice to remain steady. "We've faced storms before, and we will face them again together." From the crowd, a soft voice piped up, "But what if they bring more than just darkness?" The hesitant words sparked a wave of anxiety. Elenora turned to see Mrs. Perkins, wisdom etched into her weathered face. The old woman had seen so much. If she was afraid, what hope was there for the rest? But Elenora couldn't let despair settle. "Listen," We cannot ready to paint the village in blood, are you? The other man sneered, his arms crossed defiantly. His presence was like a slap in her face, chilling her words. Who do you work for? It escaped her lips before she could consider, and she regretted it instantly. He took a step closer, the intensity of his gaze burning into her, unflinching. We work for those who fear uprising. Those who thrive in darkness, child. And should you continue this charade, the village will pay the price. Elenora swallowed hard, the weight of their threats heavy in the air. Around her, villagers exchanged glances, the confidence beginning to crack. Would they falter? Would they crumble at the first sign of fear, just as the sun hid behind a cloud? No. She shouted, rallying her voice against the tide of doubt. We will not live in fear. We demand to stand for ourselves. Her heart raced as she found her footing again. A horn sounded in the distance, echoing through the square. It was the town's call, a sound that typically brought comfort. But now, it felt like a rallying cry, a signal for a greater battle. Elenora locked eyes with the ominous men, feeling a fire ignite within her. This wasn't just a village, it was home, filled with faces that she loved. The looming threat was real, but the love she held was stronger. Together, she whispered, as much for herself as for everyone else, we are louder than fear. We are a force. In that moment, she felt the pulse of her father's teachings echoing through her. His voice rang true: hope and love could reshape the world. And as she stood there, with the weight of the crowd's attention on her, she knew she had to be the voice they needed. But as she turned back to the crowd, uncertainty flickered in their eyes. Would they follow her? Would they stand with her against this darkness? Before she could reach deeper into her heart for the words needed to inspire them further, she saw a flicker of movement from the dark men, pulling away from the gathering. Eleanora's heart raced. Where were they going? What did it mean for her village? Suddenly, the ground beneath her felt like a ticking clock, and she realized that the true battle was just beginning. What had she unleashed? So many questions lingered like smoke in the air. And as Elenora took a deep breath, a chilling thought crossed her mind: if they would go this far to silence her, what other mysteries were still hidden, waiting to unfold? Elenora watched as the two dark figures retreated, the threat of their presence still lingering in the air, thick and suffocating. Each step they took felt like a drumbeat echoing in her heart, a reminder of the fight ahead. She could feel the tension increase in the crowd, their collective breath held in expectation and worry. What do we do now? A voice called out from the back. It was Jacob, a young farmer who had always looked up to Elenora for her bravery. His wide eyes were filled with fear, and she could see the doubt creeping into the hearts of those around him. Elenora stepped forward, needing to project confidence that she wasn't sure she fully felt. We gather our strength, she proclaimed, her voice breaking through the murmurs. We have stood together through droughts, storms, and sickness. We can stand together now. But doubt hadn't left the air. Soft whispers blended into a cacophony of uncertainty. What if they come back? What if they bring the darkness they spoke of? I will not let fear dictate our actions, she said fiercely, feeling her own resolve harden as she spoke. We will prepare. We need to know where we stand and who we are, not just as individuals, but as a community. As she looked into the faces of the villagers, she saw their hesitance slowly transforming. Mrs. Perkins nodded, determination flickering in her eyes. We must band together. We cannot let them break our spirit. A ripple of agreement passed through the crowd. Elenora inhaled deeply, pushing against the doubt that tried to claw its way back into her heart. Tonight, we will meet at the old mill, she declared. Bring your families, your skills, your stories. We will reinforce our bonds and prepare to defend what is ours. The horn sounded again, this time it resonated a deeper resolve within her. It was a reminder of hope, echoing their shared past, and their brighter future. One by one, people began to nod, to murmur, their fear transforming into something heavier, something more potent, determination. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed through the square. Everyone turned to see the larger of the dark men had dropped something heavy by the edge of the crowd. It was a black cloak, embroidered with symbols that looked eerily familiar, the emblem that marked their village, but twisted into something grotesque. "What is this?" Elenora whispered, her voice trembling. The cloak brought back memories of stories told around the fire, tales of those who came from beyond the mountains, spreading chaos and unrest. "It's a warning," a voice flatly declared from the back. It belonged to one of the village guards, Chester, who stepped forward, tension tight in his shoulders. "They think we are weak. They want to provoke us." The crowd shifted uncomfortably as Elenora grabbed the cloak, feeling the weight of fear and anger bleeding into her skin. "They underestimate us," she shouted, her voice ringing like a bell across the square. "If we stand as one, they cannot touch us." The people erupted into a roar of agreement. But as she looked down at the cloak, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the unseen eyes were studying them, waiting for a moment of weakness to leap in. As she turned away from the crowd, Elenora held tightly to the cloak, feeling it pulse with a life of its own. What threats lay ahead? Who truly controlled that darkness the men spoke of? And as dusk began to descend upon the village, she felt an unsettling truth settle into her bones: this was only the beginning. Would they be able to withstand the shadows growing closer, or would they succumb to the very darkness they sought to escape? With her heart racing uncertainly, Elenora stood tall and ready for the answers, ready for the fight. But in the corner of her mind, a chilling question flared: when the true tests of loyalty and courage came, which side would they all choose? Elenora stood there, the cloak heavy in her grip, as the villagers slowly dispersed. Their murmurs faded into the stillness of the evening, shadows stretching across the square like fingers reaching to grasp the uncertain atmosphere. The air was thick with apprehension, yet the embers of determination flickered in her chest. "Elenora!" Chester's voice cut through the quiet. He was striding toward her, his brow furrowed with concern. "What if we're not prepared? What if they rally more strength?" She met his gaze with a fierce intensity. "Then we become stronger, Chester. We can't yield to fear. Not now." Her heart raced as she remembered the chaos that once threatened to engulf their home. "The past has taught us how to fight. We can do it again." Chester nodded, though doubt still lingered in his eyes. "I fear it's more than we understand. They dropped that cloak for a reason." His expression grew grim. "What if they are not just coming for our land, but for our very essence? What binds us?" Eleonora's stomach churned. She thought about the stories her grandmother used to tell about the darkness that could consume not just bodies but spirits. Those tales were never meant to be true. "We will meet at the old mill. Everyone is counting on us to guide them," she insisted, willing the weight of responsibility to lift her resolve. "We need to understand what we're facing. Gather our defenses." Chester stepped back, glancing over his shoulder at the remaining villagers. "All right, but we need to plan sooner rather than later." He turned to call others back to the square as they prepared for the meeting. Elenora watched him go, her heart thumping louder with every passing moment. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the chill of night seeped into the air. The village felt different, almost foreign. She could sense the presence of something lurking just beyond their reach. When she arrived at the old mill, a mix of villagers was already gathered. Some held lanterns, flickering shadows dancing on their faces, illuminating expressions of concern and determination. Elenora could feel their energy pulse around her, a heightened sense of purpose tinged with fear. "Welcome," she called, trying to project warmth and unity. "Tonight, we share our stories and our skills. We will lift each other and face what comes together." She looked around, locking eyes with each person. Even Jacob, standing at the back, drew on courage she knew he had. "We need to remember our shared strength, our histories. We must not only fight together but understand what we're fighting against." The crowd fell into a silence filled with anticipation. One by one, villagers shared tales of past struggles, the droughts that nearly stole their livelihood, the sickness that had swept through their homes. Echoes of bravery intermingled with moments of doubt, and Elenora soaked in every word, weaving their collective history into a tapestry of strength. Then Mrs. Perkins stood. "That cloak, it carries memories of betrayal. But it can also remind us of the bonds that hold us together. Those aren't just threads, they represent our past victories. As the night deepened, Elenora felt a growing sense of unity wash over them. They shared laughter through tears, unwilling to let darkness define them. But deep down, she sensed that something more sinister loomed on the horizon. Suddenly, a loud crash interrupted the gathering. The door of the mill swung open, revealing a shadowy form silhouetted against the flickering lanterns. The villagers turned, hearts pounding, faces paled by fear. "Who is it?" Elenora called out, her voice steady despite the chaos within. From the shadow stepped a figure draped in a cloak, one that matched the symbol of their village, a cruel reflection of the past. All eyes widened as he raised his hands. "I come with a message. The darkness is coming and it demands a sacrifice." Fear clawed at Eleonora's throat. Tension electrified the air. What did this mean for them? Could she protect her people from an enemy she didn't yet understand? As she felt the weight of her responsibility press down like a heavy stone, a chilling thought filled her mind. Sacrifices were meant to be made, but at what cost? Would they be willing to bear that weight together, or would fear tear them apart? Eleonora's heart raced as silence enveloped the room. The cloaked figure's words hung heavy, like fog settling over the village. The flame of hope flickered as uncertainty twisted inside her. "Who sent you?" she demanded, her voice steady despite the dread pooling in her stomach. The villagers shifted uneasily, glancing at one another, confusion and fear reflected in their eyes. The figure stepped closer, a flash of moonlight catching his face, revealing a man not much older than Elenora herself. His features were sharp and narrow, but his eyes sparkled with a strange intensity, a mixture of sorrow and urgency. "I am here to warn you. The darkness is relentless. It knows your strengths, but it also knows your fears." Elenora felt the bond of community tighten around her, even as fear whispered doubts. "What is this darkness? What does it want from us?" She pressed, unwilling to back down. His gaze flickered to the cloaks worn by the villagers. "It feeds on division. It thrives on fear. And soon, if you do not prepare, it will come for your essence. The sacrifices it demands are not just lives, they aim to sever the very fabric of who you are." A murmur cascaded through the group. Elenora glanced at Chester, who stood rigid, his hands balled into fists. "We won't let that happen," he shouted. "We're stronger together." "But it needs to appear that you're divided," the man continued, eyes darting to the shadows creeping around the mill. "Those who are unsure, who question loyalty, they become the seeds of the darkness." Elenora felt a chill run down her spine. "You say we need to prepare. But how? Give us something we can hold on to." Her voice cracked, desperation seeping through. The man took a moment, sending the room into a heavy pause. "Gather your stories. Weave your shared memories into a tapestry so strong that it cannot be unraveled. It's your bond that will protect you." Suddenly, another loud crash echoed through the building. Lanterns flickered wildly, casting chaotic light and shadow. Eleonora's breath caught. A feeling of dread wrapped around her like cold fingers. Outside, she could hear distant wails and rumbling thunder. The storm was coming. "Get inside!" shouted Jacob, rushing to shut the door. The villagers hurried to help him, panic igniting their movements. The cloaked man took a step back, eyes wide, fear now creeping into his features too. Eleonora's mind raced. She couldn't let the fear of defeat drown her or her people. "Listen!" she called out above the noise. "Let us not forget why we're here. We stand as one. We share our strength." As the villagers gathered closer, the atmosphere shifted. Shadows receded mildly as their united presence filled the space. Elenora tilted her head, meeting the man's gaze once more. "We will be ready. But we need to know what to do." He hesitated, the weight of secrets resting heavily on him. "The gathering storm will test you. Prepare your stories, yes, but also prepare for betrayal from within. For darkness often wears a familiar face, one you trust." Elenora stiffened, understanding dawning upon her. Betrayal? Could it come from their own? She felt her chest constrict with horror. "We'll be watching for it," she vowed, her voice fierce. "When the moment arrives, how will you know who to trust?" he called out, half in challenge, half in warning. Each villager exchanged glances, uncertainty still clouding their unity. Elenora knew this was only the beginning. The stakes were higher than they had ever imagined, and heavy burdens lay ahead. With a determination forged in the fires of fear, she whispered her promise to herself: they would not fall apart. We will stand together. But as the howling wind began to howl outside, a deeper worry filled her. The question lingered in her mind: were they truly prepared for the test that awaited them? They had weathered many storms before, but this one seemed darker and far more dangerous. Elenora took in a deep breath, the air thick with tension, determination flaring within her. She knew one thing as certainty: the true battle was yet to come. Would their bonds withstand the ultimate test, or would fear shatter their very foundation? The chill of uncertainty deepened, leaving the villagers standing at the edge of a precipice together, or alone. As dawn broke over Windmere, light spilled through the remnants of the night like a soft promise. Elenora stood at the threshold of the old mill, her heart pounding in rhythm with the echoes of the villagers gathered close. Their expressions were etched with a mixture of hope and apprehension. The remnants of the cloaked figures' warning hung heavily in the air, each word a shadow playing at the fringes of their minds. Elenora felt the weight of expectation on her shoulders, the strength of the community backing her like a warm blanket. They needed a plan, a beacon to guide them through the encroaching darkness. She stepped forward, the morning light illuminating her features, urging the villagers to turn their gaze toward her. Together, she called, her voice firm and clear, pushing the lingering doubts aside. We have faced trials before, and we will face this one too. We each hold a piece of this village, and together, we are unbreakable. The murmurs began softly, a hesitant springboard of agreement flooding through the crowd. Their eyes brightened, and Elenora could see the flickers of resilience rekindling within them like fire kindling in a dormant forest. She could feel their strength swelling around her, providing warmth and fuel to her own resolve, but underneath the surge of courage, a gnawing fear clawed at her. Could she protect them? Could she lead them through the storm that threatened their very existence? She had promised her father to face the darkness, but how? What would that mean for those she loved most? Tonight, we gather again, Elenora continued, shaking off her doubts. We will stand united, not just in defense, but in the stories that bind us. We must be a tapestry, woven of truths, beloved faces, and shared memories. This darkness feeds on division, on our fears. Let us weave something stronger. Nods echoed through the crowd, inspiring her spirit. Come to the old mill with the tales that light your hearts. Share your courage, your wisdom. Together, we will find the answers. In that moment, a little girl stepped forward from the crowd, clutching her beloved wooden toy, a soldier, sturdy and fearless. Will you fight for us, Elenora? She asked, her wide eyes shining with innocence. The question echoed louder than any threat. Elenora knelt to meet her gaze, the weight of the world crashing down in that moment. I will fight with everything I have, not just for you but for every child, for every family. We will face this darkness together. In a chorus, the villagers shouted their commitment, their voices merging into a powerful wave of unity, washing over Elenora like a tide of warmth. It was more than she had hoped for. Yet even as triumph surged, she was aware of her father's absence. Thomas, often the quiet strength of their family, didn't he stand with them today? Elenora needed his steadfast presence at her side, his wisdom to guide her through the tumult ahead. She firmly believed he would come to understand, but as the day wore on, doubt crept into her heart again. What if he remained resistant to the changes they so desperately needed? As evening approached, the villagers converged once more at the old mill. Lanterns flickered under a slowly dimming sky, casting shadows around them, a reminder of the darkness that lurked outside their walls. Elenora took a deep breath, allowing the warmth of shared stories to wash over her. One by one, the villagers stepped forward, sharing memories of strength, of resilience. Chester spoke of their ancestors who had forged the village with sweat and tears, and how together they could summon the same spirit. Old Mrs. Perkins told tales of love woven through adversity, of the bonds that nourished in times of hardship. As the room filled with laughter and tears, Elenora felt hope anchor deep within her. This wasn't just about defending against the dark, this was about reaffirming who they were, a tapestry of connections, woven with love and strength. Yet, as the last story faded and the villagers murmured their hearts together in silence, a knock thundered against the door. The air shifted, and tension gripped the room. Elenora instantly recalled the foreboding figure's warning. The darkness knew how to penetrate their serenity. With her heart pounding in her chest, she stepped forward to open the door, revealing her father, Thomas. Shadows played across his face and she could see the conflict in his eyes. Could he stand behind her, step into the light after all? Elenora, he started, voice low as if the weight of regret hung at the edges of his words. I was wrong to doubt. I've seen how strong the village is when it comes together. What you're doing, he faltered, searching for the right words, unsteady under the unyielding pressure of expectation. What I'm asking for, Father, is to stand as one. To face whatever lies ahead together. In that moment, Elenora saw a flicker of understanding pass through him. City lights glimmered in the darkness outside, illuminating him with a resilience she hadn't fully recognized before. With a choked whisper bursting forth, her father's voice steadied. Yes, I'm here. I will support you, but we must proceed with caution. The darkness will come for us, but if we stand united, I believe we can prevail. Elenora met his gaze, a tide of emotion surging within her. Tears of joy filled her eyes, and she wiped her cheeks, sending a wave of relief coursing through her. Together then, as a family and as a village. That night, laughter echoed and joy filled the air as the villagers rallied around her father. This was a new beginning, shaping them with the spirit they ignited together. They were fighting not just for their survival but defining their legacy, one stitch at a time. As Elenora stood in the midst of the gathering, surrounded by family and friends, she held fast to the fleeting fear of darkness, ready to face it head-on. They were not alone, they were together. And as one, they would carve out a future bathed in the light of resilience and unwavering hope. The road ahead held unknown shadows, but she would meet them with a heart full of love, a force strong enough to face the ultimate test. Elenora's voice rang clear, echoing with promise. No matter the storm, we will weather it together. In that moment, the villagers shouted their agreement, entwined in a fierce unity that spoke louder than words. This was their strength, a force that no shadow could extinguish. So, the battle against the darkness began, but it was infused with a spirit that would not yield, beaten but never broken. And as Elenora raised her hands, the villagers rallied behind her, hearts aflame with determination. Now was the moment to act. Strength had been forged in stories, kinship, love, and they were more than prepared. Whatever challenges awaited them lay ahead, the villagers of Windmere stood ready, poised to face the storm together. They would no longer be victims of their fears but masters of their destiny. So, let the darkness come. They would stand united, unyielding, and resilient. This was just the beginning. The tapestry of their lives was woven tightly, and the heart of their village beat stronger than ever before. So, beloved friends, let us rise together against the challenges of life. There may be darkness, but with unity and love, we can be the change this world so desperately needs. Now that you have witnessed this transformation, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it makes a difference. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. And most importantly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to support this journey. Only true fans understand the power of community.